Hello everyone, Professor Gabriel here, and I once made a video about macrophages and B cells. This time, however, I am going to be making a video about natural killer cells. Natural killer cells come from your adaptive immune system, but as they mature, they move on to your innate immune system. They don't fight like macrophages by consuming bacteria through a process called phagocytosis, but they rather tell cells to kill themselves. But how? Well, you're going to learn this in a few minutes from now. Now, most cells have proteins on the surfaces called the major histocompatibility complex class 1 molecules, also known as MHC class 1 molecules, and how it works is that there are MHC class 1 molecules inside of cells, and what they do is they take samples of what is going on inside of a cell, and then it'll go on top of that cell, where it will present this specific type of protein to the rest of the immune system. For instance, a cell is infected by a virus, so the MHC class 1 molecules inside that cell will take samples of those virus proteins, then go on top of that cell, where it will present this virus protein to the immune system. Now, when natural killer cells approach a cell, they always do so with the intention of killing. Therefore, whenever they approach a cell, they always want to kill it. However, what prevents them from killing healthy cells is a special type of protein on their surfaces called inhibitor receptors. Inhibitor receptors just connect to the MHC class 1 molecules, causing the natural killer cell to be calmed. Feeling like a biology genius yet? No? Well, hold tight. We're just getting started. So what happens is when a natural killer cell approaches a cell, it wants to kill that cell. However, if the cell had MHC class 1 molecules, then the natural killer cell's inhibitor receptors will connect to that cell's MHC class 1 molecules, causing that natural killer cell to not want to kill that cell anymore. So it'll just move on and not kill that cell and just check other cells' MHC class 1 molecules. However, if the cell did not have MHC class 1 molecules, then the natural killer cell will approach the cell, and then its inhibitor receptors will have no MHC class 1 molecules to connect to, causing the natural killer cell to kill that cell. Well, how does it kill a cell? Well, natural killer cells puncture a hole inside a cell, or make a small hole inside that cell, and as it does so, it releases some enzymes or other proteins that triggers a process called apoptosis, also known as programmed cell death. This causes the cell to die naturally, but not by bacteria killing them violently, not that way. So, this does not only happen because when a natural killer cell punctures a hole inside that cell, the water outside of that cell fills up that cell until it bursts open. You can imagine this as a balloon, and you get a small straw, then poke the balloon and begin blowing and blowing until the balloon bursts open. So this is what natural killer cells do. They puncture a hole, the water fills the cell up until it bursts open. However, the question comes now, what if a cell is infected but decides to keep its MHC class 1 molecules? Does this mean that the natural killer cell will not be able to identify whether that cell is infected or not, and they'll think it's healthy and will just move on, not kill it at all? Well, that's not really true. But why? Well, when your cells are infected, and even if they did have MHC class 1 molecules, they're going to be making some stress proteins and put it on their surfaces. So when a natural killer cell checks the cell, it will detect those stress proteins, which are not too obvious to detect. However, the natural killer cell can still detect them, so once they do, it'll know that the cell is infected, which will tell that cell to kill itself. The final question is, what if a cell is infected and it decides to keep its MHC class 1 molecules, and it also decides to not have those stress proteins? Does this mean that the natural killer cell will think that the cell is healthy and will not kill the cell? Well, that's not true. This is because when there's an infection due to infected cells, your body will produce some proteins called antibodies, and what I'm talking about here is specifically IgG antibodies. And when a cell is infected with virus proteins on the surfaces, IgG antibodies will start covering that cell until it is fully covered. So therefore, the cell is now covered in IgG antibodies, and although it has MHC class 1 molecules and doesn't have those stress proteins, a natural killer cell will move by and detect those IgG antibodies. Once it does, it'll know that this cell is infected and will tell this cell to kill itself, the same way as I said earlier. So that's how natural killer cells work. So that's it for today. The lecture is over. Thank you all so much for supporting this channel. It makes me so happy. Stay healthy and smart.